Back to Washington to speak to William Lawrence, Professor of Political Science and International Affairs at the American University. Always a pleasure to have you on, Professor. Just that clip of Yevgeny Prigozhin, how much do you think Bakhmut is really about him? Because some people say that if Wagner does succeed in taking Bakhmut, it'll give Yevgeny Prigozhin even more decision-making power with Vladimir Putin.
Yes, the Russian side is looking for someone who can win, and it hasn't found anyone in particular yet. So, if the Wagner group can't do it, to state this proposition the other way, then maybe no one can. So it's incredibly important. But I think Bakhmut's more important for another reason, which is that Russia would like this war to end with the 4 areas of the east that it's annexed under its control. And it doesn't control any of them at 100%. In fact, one of them only 50%. So Bakhmut is part of building out the territory it's already annexed, i.e. taking over these entire provinces. And if Bakhmut, if it succeeds, means that Russia's on its way to eventually ending this war, having annexed the territory. If it can't even take this one area, then there's the question of, well, what has Russia annexed? Because the front lines don't represent the borders.
What do you make of the public reaction that's been continuing since that New Year's attack by Ukraine that killed, well, we don't know exactly the number of Russian soldiers. The Russians have now admitted it's at least 80 in Makivka. The analysis from Russia now accepting that possibly it was too many mobile phone calls from those recruits who were based there in Makivka that allowed the Ukrainians to locate them. But the reaction from the public, it appears to be showing, we've discussed this, and you will have done with every single broadcaster you've ever appeared with, about the reaction of the Russian public to the fighting in Ukraine, and especially now that this has happened in Makivka.
I think the most important aspect of this for us to think about is this war ends when the Russian public turns against Putin, and then the people around Putin. So the deeper and deeper that the Ukrainians strike into Russian territory, we have strikes as far as 800 miles from the Ukrainian-Russian border, and the more and more Russians die, and we've had Russian casualties on their side, inside quote-unquote Russian territory, and then this latest killing of between 80 and 500 with this one strike. And think about it. Russian families have to call American phone numbers to get information on their Russian soldiers in the field that the Russian government doesn't provide them. That's happened both in the land and the maritime conflict. And one of the reasons these soldiers were using their cell phones is to report basically what's going on to their families and on Facebook. If Russia shuts that down, then that's going to, increase the anxiety over the defeats that are going on and the cost to the Russian nation and the cost to its population. We have missiles being shot that were just manufactured. We have soldiers gearing up for this offensive that were just recruited and just trained. And if things continue to go badly over the next 3 or 4 months, then we could see a swifter end to this war simply because Russia can't win.
You don't think that possibly Vladimir Putin may decide that more mobilization is what's required, more boots on the ground?
Oh, that's what he'd prefer, but who? I mean, we've mobilized just about everybody. They're letting people out of jail and putting them on the front line. They're stopping people trying to flee the country and putting them on the front line. And they've have these 300,000 new recruits in addition to all the others, but there's a limit to what Russia can deploy. And think about it. If you look at the latest interview with the Ukrainian intelligence chief about what the front line looks at, Russian troops are hiding behind stacks of dead bodies at certain frontline locations. And there are other locations with fields of dead bodies that haven't been properly disposed of. And as these messages get back to the Russian public, that creates the kind of pressure that I'm talking about. And if you look at the escalation of weapons, the HIMARS, the NAMADs, and now the Bradley vehicles announced under consideration today, and possibly Abrams tanks, and then the Russian light tanks and the French light tanks and the and the French armored vehicles coming in, these are troop mobilizers and troop movers that could increase the lethality of the Ukrainian counterattack and continue to pile up those dead bodies, which will eventually have an effect on Russian opinion outside of Putin's bubble.
Professor William Lawrence, thank you so much indeed, sir.